when I first talked to you before we even turned the camera on, you said that there was something that you had wanted to discuss that you were particularly passionate about.
Oh, the conventions. We're here at a convention.
We have a few minutes left,
yes.
So let's talk about that.
All right, let's throw this out here. I think these things are beautiful things. and maybe our time could be up. And these conventions are remarkable because I think you guys should think about what kind of people gather here. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a very high degree of the neuroatypical. And by that I mean people who are wired differently, Asperger's et al. You know, high-functioning autistics. And they have conventions. Now these are the same people who invented the telephone and invented most of telecommunications. It's interesting that in medieval times you would have been like no better than the village idiot if that was kindly enough for you.
Right. Well,
and mistreated and misunderstood, exactly. But
Bill Gates.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. So after a while, well, I think it's interesting that they invented the means where they found one another, and now have convened conventions. We call them sci-fi fantasy conventions, right. But they are also, in a Darwinistic sense, a great mating ground.
Ah, that's cool. I dig that.
So I think you guys need to think about where you are. I mean, you say you're interested in science fiction. Well, here it is: living, breathing, moving.
Well, look, that's what my writing panel is about.
Yeah.
Reading, as you say.
Yeah.
Eitan and
absolutely.
I, you know, when we talked about it, we were like, well, it's not just about like the authors and the books that they write. There's this incredible world that takes place. The art directors, the artists, the con creators, the fans, you know, people trying to get in, and the writers. I mean, that's all part of this incredible world. I absolutely
know.
agree.
And there are many cultural complications that stem from this, but there's also outcomes that are more transcendent than the current, you know, kind of transmission shifting gears between these societies, you know, the micro-society and the broader society. Something bigger is happening.
Well, I agree, and I think to a certain extent, creativity and the best creativity comes from people who have a form of Asperger's or who grew up not necessarily understanding how normal social reactions,
or what we call normal,
or what they call normal social reactions are, and therefore had to find solutions outside of the norm.
Yeah,
and in finding
they were under pressure as well.
Under pressure,
so, which also can be a big deal because pressure. I mean, you look at Eastern Bloc Europe and their sort of incredible artistic ascendance with their posters and their graphic arts because they were under pressure from totalitarianism. It actually forces a kind of a critical clumping of creative talents.
Right.
And the only way they're ever going to spread their wings or actually feel like they can breathe is to do these extraordinary things.
Yes, I agree.
Well, here you've got a differently wired populace that had the social pressure of not really being accepted broadly socially,
right.
Making their own society. And they are the people who actually created the means to find one another. Telecommunications, webs, you know, all of that.
Right.
It's just amazing that they invented the means of I mean, this is an extraordinary event.
Right.
And then they are now grouping.
Right. That's a very good insight.
But they've been doing this since pretty much the invention of fanzines and the beginning of
I agree.
Way predating the computer.
I mean, I don't know how many printers strike me as Asperger's. My son is Asperger's, and then I was brought in for testing for heritable effects, and then they did all this sort of wiring diagnostic on me. It turns out I am unusual, and that probably has to do with the no references to do figures or no references to do cars and things like that. It comes as sort of a pattern consciousness, and there were tests that I did, and they kind of went, we haven't actually seen this before. And I went, oh, and they said, so it is heritable. So I'm not here by the accident I thought brought me here.
Right.
I thought there was an accident bringing me here. I used to wonder, how come I know these people, and why do they like my art so much?
Destiny is biology?
Yeah, and I do think, yes.
I think that
we're looking at a chunk of that.
It's not just biology.
And the new biology is technological.
But Rick took that biology, or that
those with the biological tendency created the technology to link
the supposed disability.
Yes.
The supposed disability
that we've relied upon.
Right, that we've relied on. He took that supposed disability and turned it into this incredible art form and these incredible worlds that open up other worlds for other people who might not be thinking that way.
Well, what bothers me is
attracted people with the same biological tendency to him, along with all the other things that take place here. It's not only computer, it's artistic, it's literary, it's...
Yeah, it's very broad spectrum, oddly.
But essentially
these people aren't normally credited with being broad spectrum, which is unusual. And they often, you know, there's sort of a theory of I and whether or not they are able to get jokes or put themselves in someone else's position. That's just crap. I mean, an incredibly subtle reasoning. That they are socially not terrifically intuitional, but their intuition lies in another spectrum. And the world has always relied on these people, but as soon as telephones become conventional, you no longer think about the unconventional people who made them, and society goes right back to sort of skirting the very intelligences who brought them this now conventional item.
Well, I think that geek is chic now, so or it's getting there. So I think that I think that it's moved.
I do.
Rick, thank you so much for being on NeverEndingPanel.com.
It was a pleasure.
And we will post your websites and all your information. Eitan, nice meeting you.
Good.